A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain, so.
Good morning from Abuja. Yes, we're both speaking from Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.
And from Lagos. Yes, I have to say it as well, Maokwe. Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makide.
Okay, well, guys, let's pick up on this matter. This conversation about whether or not the state police will be a thing, it will eventually happen, it's come up again, this time with the Senate. And the deputy president of the Senate, Ovie Omagige, was addressing journalists concerning the passage or amending the Constitution. And therein, he did say that about 11 states are blocking the passage of the amendment of the Constitution. He says that the state assemblies came up with a position saying that if some of the recommendations or the new proposals that they made were not included, they were not going to pass it. Now, listen to that. It comes across as though they were blocking the passage of the laws on state police. But while he went on, journalists then said, no, but wait a minute, but that part never even came up. It was never debated on the floor. And then he says, well, that's because it died at the committee stage. And it was a bit confusing. But part of the recommendations that those states, 11 states houses of assembly, from what he said, is that the bills proposed by those state houses of assembly include bills to establish state police, state judicial council, streamlining the procedure for removing the presiding officers of the state houses of assembly, and institutionalizing legislative bureaucracy in the 1999 Constitution. So we know that all the governors now are on the same page on that subject matter. So in a manner of speaking, I mean, that will suggest then that, well, those states, those 11 states who are saying, include these parts, one wonders, what then is the challenge? Why are they not considering including that particular clause, which, if all the governors are on the same page, why did it die at the committee stage? So it means that those states, well, they've got a point there. And the Senate, the Deputy Senate President, perhaps they need to go back to the Senate and find out why did it die at the committee stage? Why is it that they don't want to even include it? So if the states are digging their heels in, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, it's one of the very few times I hear you give an opinion on anything. Oftentimes, you just lay the case bare and then have us, have the comments on it. But hey, this time around, Chamberlain feels strongly enough about this to tell you what he thinks. But, when you think about how much, because we know that for every assembly that comes in, this is the 9th assembly. So by the time this assembly is over, it will be over next year. Yeah. Usually they finish a little after the president has finished his own term. He is sworn in May 29. They finish sometime in June or thereabout. So that's about the time that the 9th assembly will wrap up. We know that every time a new assembly, because after they wrap up, another assembly will be sworn in for the next 4 years. Yeah. That will be the 10th assembly. When that assembly starts, one of the key roles that is given to the Deputy Senate President is the amendment of the Constitution. It is almost taken for granted now that with every assembly we see, the amendment of the Constitution is one of the key features of that particular assembly. And you know how much is earmarked every year in every budget for amendment of the Constitution? It is a mind-boggling sum. I do know that the last time I took note of what was earmarked for it in the budget, was it 2022 budget or 2021? I'm trying to remember which one of the budgets. ₦1 billion was earmarked for it. So, and this is just for one thing, to amend our laws, well, the grand norm, yes, but it is just one part of the many chores that the National Assembly is right there for. We've seen what usually happens. I mean, there are committee meetings, not just committee meetings, there are constituency meetings. Members are asked to go back to their constituencies. It's a laborious process. And it was one of the reasons why the National Assembly decided to start breaking it down bill by bill. So that at the end of the day, after they've gone through that gamut of work, if eventually they are able to succeed in making some significant passages, one person, because we've seen that happen before, the president might refuse to sign, and then all of the work goes to waste. So what they decided to do was break it down to ensure that if at the end of the day you are dissatisfied with maybe just one thing in it, you can put that one thing aside and look at the merits of all the other things. So I do not know how it has worked this time. I imagine that since they came up with that innovation, they have been keeping to it. Are they now saying that as a result of their dissatisfaction with the non-inclusion, that's the states now, the non-inclusion of this important parts of the proposals which they had made, they're discarding all the other bills which has been presented to them? Is that what they're saying? And if they are, is it possible for them to take a second look at this? Because, as you rightly pointed out, Chamberlain, almost all of the governors are now, on the same page with regards to state police. If you also listen to the manifestos of almost all of the candidates who are running for president in this election, you will hear even the most conservative of them saying that, look, state police is the way to go. Interestingly, this conversation about state police also started from the Senate. We do know that Senator Ike Kwerimadu, who was DSP for quite a while, at some point, yes, is right now, having his own problems with the UK authorities. But he did quite a job of work on ensuring that, some of the objections that had been raised with the issue of state police were addressed, right? So if at the end of the day, some of these things have been addressed and we're not reinventing the wheel, checks and balances have been put in place, what then have been the objections of those who are now currently resisting its inclusion in this current amendment? And if at the end of the day, this is about, how do I put it now? This is about, showing power. What about all of the other works that they have done as state houses of assembly? Are they just going to discard it? I'm hoping that they will be able to sit down so that all of this monies and all of this work do not go to waste. To be very honest, Chamberlain, I didn't have a lot of faith in this particular process. I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm even surprised that they have gotten this far. And interestingly, there have been significant changes made in our constitution, proposed and, being carried through in the constitution, especially the independence of state houses of assembly, which is extremely important. So if for nothing at all, I would imagine that the state houses of assembly should be interested in them becoming even more independent. They should be interested in local government autonomy. These are very important important proposals that have been put in this constitution amendment. And I want to believe that they will be able to set ego aside, whatever it is, find a way to have the conversation, and let us be able to move this country forward. Every time we talk about restructuring, and they continue to insist that we have to do it through the National Assembly. This is one way that they have to show us that they're indeed capable of pushing through the restructuring which we so mouthed. Ayo and Bukola.
Well, Malkwa, what's interesting in all of this conversation that we have had, and I'm glad that you guys have spoken to, the issues, but perhaps there is a need to connect the issues being raised by the National Assembly with development generally. One of the things that we have seen over the years, over the decades, is a crucial one of the autonomy or efficiency of the local government system. Much of the flooding that we are dealing with now, if the local government system, local government officials had been as effective as they ought to be, some of those, preventive measures, would have been taken to ensure that these things don't go the way they have gone so far. So this is the situation that we have on our hands now. The question is, where do we go from here? I mean, the questions are most certainly going to abound continually. The reasons for the state government saying no, or even the houses of assemblies saying no, beat the imagination. So perhaps there is a need to ask that question. Exactly what is the issue? Is it the money that the local governments and the states, share in the same account? If that is the money, let's have a conversation around it. I mean, it's important that the officials of government at that lowest tier of government would be able to do the needful in this regard. Much of the federal government's, the mineral resources that the federal government has authority over are located in the local governments. Security, the first line of security, we've had this conversation countless times on this program, that the first line of security in our country is the local government system. Where the local governments are not as effective as they ought to be, we lose that first line of security. The incursion is not going to end. So I don't know who needs to have this conversation. Perhaps it might also be a good idea for the National Assembly to invite the state houses of assembly speakers. Let's understand exactly what the issues are. Why are you guys saying no? If it is the governors that many people believe don't always agree with, what needs to be done to ensure that these things get, across, perhaps that there is also the need to have that conversation with the governors, because we have also heard that when some of them leave offices, they regret not passing this autonomy bill, not allowing the houses of assembly to pass this autonomy bill. So those conversations need to be had. Perhaps there is a need for certain specific conversations around security, around development at the local level, so that we can mitigate rural-urban migration, and so many other things that are on the line here. Because, guys, unless this is done, I don't know how long we have to uhuru when it comes to development issues. Back to you guys.
I understand your points, Ayo, but the thing is, look, I'm not sure there's any need to invite these state houses of assembly, because the conference of those speakers have said, look, these are the 4 things. Include those bills. Why should it die at the committee stage? Let it be debated on the floor of the Senate. That's why those are very important components of the entire thing, which you also have raised. This is why they went on strike in the first instance, the judicial workers. So all of these items don't have to die at the committee stage. So when the DSP was speaking, it comes across as though those governors who he say are the ones stopping this passage, it made it look as if they were, stopping the passage of the bill even on state police. Until journalists said, no. This was not even considered. But anyways, I think we'll see some of them highlighted in some of the front pages today. So we'll take a look at those dailies in just a moment. All right, welcome back. Let's take you through some of the dailies. We'll start with Daily Trust this morning. And look at their own account. Despite 1 billion naira allocation, Constitution amendment in limbo. That's a lot of money that's just going to go, because if they don't agree on anything, 1 billion is gone down the drain. If no amendment is done, if no passage of any bill is done, it's gone. Wow, just like that. This is a billion naira we're talking about here.
I remember that figure very clearly. So it's interesting that, Daily Trust is leading with that particular story. When I said it, I hadn't even seen the front page of Daily Trust. So even, the papers remember, the media remembers that this is how much we earmarked for this exercise this year alone.
Wow.
Yes, it's because the budgetary provision is done on a yearly basis. Now, they can argue that the releases might be different, but that's how much we budgeted for it.
Look, I don't think Nigerians will forgive this National Assembly if nothing happens and this money is wasted. Anyway, look, they said, look, they wasted much more than this in this country.
No,
that doesn't justify it anyway.
That cannot be the attitude.
Exactly.
We should refuse to condone such an attitude. People should be accountable for the amount of monies, that is given to them to do any kind of work. It cannot just go to waste like that, especially if they've come up with innovations to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Well, I don't think it should end there, even though they have lots of riders. The National Assembly have also spoken about why they wrote the speakers. No, what the speakers have spoken of why they wrote the National Assembly, states withholding votes over state police and things like that. So that's Daily Trust this morning.
Well, leadership has this. Also focusing on the Constitution Amendment. Again, Constitution Amendment exercise hits brick wall. State assemblies return to NAS with 4 fresh bills 7 months after receiving 44 bills. 1 state police, judicial council, legislative bureaucracy bills passed. NLC threatens to shut down state assemblies over local government autonomy. So you see,
there you go.
they're very important parts of this that just cannot be, thrown away. Whatever it is that, you know, the problems are, they should find how to resolve it. Page 4 will give you details to that. You also see there, Wike's Lagos PDP candidate endorses Sanwo-Olu for re-election. It's on page 13 of the paper. The concerns as America's bank predicts 20% Naira devaluation in 2023. That's also there. INEC worried over clashes at campaigns, states denial of access. So, I mean, refusing opposition parties in states access to use public facilities is giving INEC a source for concern. And just in case you're wondering if governance is stopped, well, Governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, is showing that he's still, you know, very focused on what he should be delivering to the people of Kaduna. That's him right there in the picture, presenting the 2023 budget before the Kaduna State House of Assembly. Should we be seeing that now? This is October. We should be expecting to see a number of states follow suit, but he certainly blazed the trail for the 2023 budget. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
Flip to this Nigeria newspaper, and it leads with pretty much the same story as others previously mentioned so far this morning. Governors frustrating constitutional review process. Subscribe to the National Assembly. National Assembly alleges, as you can see on the screen, say only 11 out of 25 states worked on amendment bills after 6 months. Story is on pages 5 and 16 of the paper this morning. So much has been said about that already. I wish there was a way in which, by the way, good morning, Bukola. I wish there was a way. The National Assembly could override or overrule the state houses of assembly and just pass the Constitution.
Well, the rule of law has to prevail in all processes, and it's a good time to be a National Assembly member. You know, I imagine that. And a state assembly member. I imagine that you get your salaries and allowances as a legislator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and as an official of the state government. And then you get an allowance also for constitution review. Prosperous times for our legislators. You know, just to add that bit to the conversation.
1 billion.
1 billion naira.
Let me just leave it there. Now, right another picture on the front page. Prepare handover notes. Buhari directs SGF ministers' aides. Stories on page 4. Warns political appointees against abandoning governance for electioneering. That story is on the inside pages. INEC disturbed over parties' violation of peace accord. We signed it. Now we are violating it. Now INEC is concerned. Details of it are on page 13.
And from there, let's take a look at Daily Independent newspaper, and it leads this time with the INEC position on BVAS and other aspects of the electioneering process for 2023. This is the way it's captioned. BVAS, e-transmission of result have come to stay. Ascribed to INEC. Says violent campaign sending alarming signals ahead of 2023. That's it. And the big picture is what made headlines yesterday in Lagos. You see Governor Wike alongside his counterpart in Lagos State and some other officials of the Committee of Wives Association at that conference yesterday. That's the picture there. And just beneath that, the huge talking point from this morning, NAS, that's the National Assembly, warns of threat to thwart Constitution amendment, fingers governors in planned boycott by Conference of State Assemblies. That's it for Daily Independent newspaper.
We'll take a look at The Guardian next. Violent campaigns. INEC summons political parties for dumping peace accord. That is not what anybody wants to hear or hear. Certainly not good. And then look at the writers. 2023. Buhari directs SGF to begin action on handover. Don't abandon governance. President warns as APC launches PCC on Friday. I'll continue with Buhari's legacy, says Tinubu. Atiku off to Europe as PDP insists on issues-based campaign. Stakeholders advocate peaceful polls coordination in judicial process. That's the big lead right there on the front page. So there'll be a lot of focus on that one. We're being married off to pay debts. Yobe children cry out.
That's a very troubling story. You know, that's selling children as if they were chattel. That's really disturbing. And I want to imagine that the Yobe State governor will be responding, because it's unclear. I'm not certain if they have signed the Child Rights Act, but if they have, if they signed up to it, you know, there will be huge questions as to how they're protecting the rights of children. Interestingly, though, the current Senate president is from Yobe State. So this sort of story, too, should also disturb him, because this is something that the National Assembly has passed at the federal level. And if his own state has not passed it, and this is what children are saying in that state, he also has a duty to call the attention of the governor to it and see how it is that they can protect the rights of children in Yobe State. This is totally unacceptable, Kimberly.
Well, their reaction in the coming days will give us a clear picture of what they think or what their position is, but clearly something needs to be done.
Vanguard newspapers for you now. They have this: floods, Delta, Anambra, Benue, Bayelsa. Yeah, Bayelsa governors, Delta, Anambra, Benue, Bayelsa governors cry to federal government for help. That's the lead story on the front page of the Vanguard newspapers. 8 local government areas submerged. That's from Soludo. Bayelsa facing humanitarian crisis. That's from Diri. Benue overwhelmed. That's from Otom. Federal government should build more dams. That's according to Okowa. 10 local government areas still underwater. That's from the Kogi government. Federal government taking steps to mitigate effect. Guess who's speaking, Kimberly? A source. So you have categorical statements from all the states affected. Their governors are speaking up. They're granting interviews. They're concerned about what is happening in their states. And I mean, as any right-thinking governor should be. But at the federal level, who we have speaking on the front pages this morning is a source. Is this just how, you know, prioritize the disaster that has hit many states within the federal? Yes, and
different ministries.
Different ministries,
in charge
you know,
of this.
Exactly. Maybe that's where the problem lies, because where a job is everybody's work, it is nobody's work. But I would imagine that, you know, there is a commander-in-chief, you know, whose job it is to coordinate these ministries, or at least to say, this is a committee we've set up. This is a leader that's going to be in charge of this particular interministerial committee. They like to, if they want to call it that. Because as a result of what it is that we're seeing, Abuja is still battling with fuel supply. We know that there will be aftershocks. There will be, you know, rising cost of food items, rising cost of services, etc. Cotton Karfe is still a problem as we speak in Kogi State. And, you know,
I haven't seen any statement from...
It's a source that is still speaking to us, you know. It is very disturbing, Chamberlain. But that's what the Vanguard is focusing on this morning. You also find a bit of politics. I'll advance your legacies. Tinubu assures Buhari. That's also there. You can make of it what you will. You also have a number of other stories, but I guess I'm going to have you to leave. I'm going to leave you to do that. If you flip to the back page for those who love sports. Is this Jota?
Yeah.
Jota out of World Cup with calf injury. That's on the back page there. Qatar World Cup ticket sales near 3 million, says Infantino. Benzema, I'll retire at Real Madrid. I mean, what a way to retire. I mean, when you have a Ballon d'Or.
Fantastic career he's got.
But let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
And Nigerian News Direct comes next. I'm not even going to wade into that conversation you are having with Chamberlain Malpoy. And look at it on the front page of the paper. 2023 exit plan. Don't abandon governance for election campaign. Buhari warns ministers, political appointees. Story is on page 23. Directs cabinet members to commence transition plan to complete reorganization of oil gas agencies in Q1 of 2023. signs Executive Order 12 to boost accountability and transparency, confirms 2.5 trillion naira expenditure by armed forces in 7 years. Whoa. Does that include expenditure for protection of oil facilities before Tantila? I don't even know, but the details you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Several other stories that will pique your interest, but you can find them all right there. So choose your pick as you wish on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
And let's quickly cover the Daily Times of Nigeria this morning. And it leads with this one on the 2023 elections. Buhari to ministers, other officials, don't abandon governance for electioneering. Let's take a look at the riders. Says business of governance must continue to receive needed attention. Directs SGF ministers to start preparing transition documents. Well, if you ask me, way to go, because the country has a lot on its plate right now, particularly state governors. When you talk about flooding, you know, the conversation just held in Abuja, when you think about the price of, goods and services, when you think about all the other related issues, there's crude oil theft. And only yesterday we're asking questions about the participation of, governors in the entire process. So from there, let's take a look at this one above the nameplate. FG to NLC, allow Konoa, NAMDA, to exist with ASU. And the rider, just one, says, asks unions to approach courts for judicial remedy if agreed. The last I checked, ASU has approached the courts, and it's not as if the federal government has given ASU, a say in this conversation. ASU has been left with no choice. So, we'll see how that goes.
Well, telling ASU, FG telling the NLC, connotes that there may have been some conversation, from ASU about those two other unions. But as you said, I guess we'll wait to see.
We'll wait to see, particularly the outcome, of the suit initiated by ASU and the others that is critical, to the survival of tertiary institutions in the country. And lastly, this one just beside the big picture, Bayelsa flood overwhelming. We need help, says Jiri. That's the Bayelsa State Governor. That's a page 2 read inside the Daily Times. And that's it for the Daily Times this morning.
I'll take a look at New Telegraph next. Campaigns. We're worried by attacks, denial of access to public facilities. This is ascribed to INEC. Ohaneze to Uzodinma, come clean on use of BVAS. Reps minority condemns attack of PDP supporters in Kaduna. So they seem to be saying the governor of Imo State, what is he against the use of BVAS? His agents also against the use of BVAS. So what's going on with that one, I guess? Perhaps we'll talk about that probably as we proceed. And then at the bottom strip, gunmen, kidnappers flee hideouts as flood ravages Anambra. Clear disaster, but disaster management and humanitarian ministry absent. Shrines kidnapped, camps submerged. Community hires boats to search for 200 missing families. Gunmen attack General Hospital, kill 2, abduct doctor, others in Niger. So clearly there's a lot to be done. And those ministries and agencies saddled with such responsibility, they need to just be there, show up. That's why they're there in the first instance. Well, that wraps it up with a look at some of the dailies here. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Bayelsa State in south Nigeria has a landmass of 10,773 kilometers, and more than half of this has been covered by floods.
What should I do?
Currently, the most common mode of transportation is the use of canoe, and those who will swim struggle through the water to get to their destinations. Even our crew had to wade through the water to access the cemetery at Azikoro village, and our findings are mind-boggling.
This is the wrapper.
Sorry.
As we were in the cemetery, I saw something flowing out, coming out when the water is coming. Immediately I saw it, that first one was casket with it come outside. Then the second one that we bury without casket to float and come outside. I don't know what to do, so I need to drag them with my colleagues to the corner sides of the cemetery to find where to put them, because the corner side of the cemetery, that time the water was not up to this level. So we look for a solution because we are living there with our family and our children.
The health implication of this is unimaginable, and residents believe those in authority should act immediately by fumigating the community and perhaps evacuating residents of the area to safety.
We're talking about discharge of effluents that are full of bacteria into this water. And of course, the underground water is also affected. And that means a very serious health threat to humans that are living within this place. And I think that this is the premise, one of the very logical reasons why inhabitants of this community are appealing very passionately and strongly to the governor that there is now need, in the face of what we have seen, there's need for the cemetery to be shut down and the cemetery to be relocated to a better place.
The governor of the state, Doyediri, embarks on an aerial tour of affected communities already submerged and assures the people that he has ordered more relief materials to be brought into the state through the waterways.
We have been totally separated from the rest of the world. So it's pathetic. It's something that you can't even wish your enemy to be. So I'm happy that the federal government responded by saying that they have not abandoned Bayelsa State and gave immediate order to all those emergency departments and agencies and all federal agencies to immediately come to the aid of Bayelsa State.
Whatever in my house, he go reach my neck. He go reach my neck. See me with my wife, the back they go.
This is perhaps the most devastating flood recorded in the state in many years. Properties submerged, valuables lost, schools unable to resume, marketplaces swept away, and health centers taken over by the floods. And there's no doubt that it will take the state and the people a long time to recover from this huge catastrophe.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, so that is what we're focusing on this morning on Sunrise Daily, just trying to what can be done, how do we address some of these issues. All hands really have got to be on deck from whichever quarters. We've got two gentlemen joining us this morning. Commodore Kenneth Yamu is a member, Global Air Force Climate Change Collaboration Group. He's also a climate change researcher. We'll also have Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Kambali. Good morning, Mark.
Well, let me start with you, General. I mean, looking at all of this is a huge challenge that we've got on our hands. And there are several scenarios for different states in terms of how they're approaching it. So if you could give us, perhaps you start from giving us your understanding of what we're dealing with here.
Yes, thank you very much. We are dealing with a global disaster. Global disaster. It's global enough and disaster enough for the IMF to downgrade the growth for this year. From 6.1 last year to 4.2 initially, now to 3.6. That's significant. And they're also projecting inflation now to be, for the developed world, 5.7%. Then for us in the emerging economy, 8.7. That's threatening us with the recession. And some of the interactive things are COVID-19, climate emergency, and the Ukraine war. See, coming to us here, we've seen the whole disaster coming since 2017. The World Economic Forum warned you that, look, the ice, the size, 8 times the size of New York, was going to melt in 4 years. It was projected to melt in 10 years. In 10 years. Then what does that mean? That is going to elevate the water level. That is going to elevate the water level and add additional 1.5 billion tons of water to the ocean. To the ocean. What is that? That is 150 times the amount of water needed by UK to use. Why am I saying this? You are in the southern hemisphere. Well, in the southern hemisphere, your land mass is 30%, and you have water. You have 4 oceans. So when you are talking of what is happening, you are basically talking of temperature and water. Their interaction. The interaction. And again, to you also know that since 1990, the water in the atmosphere, the water vapor in the atmosphere, have increased from 5% to 20%. That's also with the possibility of pouring additional 30% water down. The conundrum of all this is that, look, the water that is supposed to fall for a year, you are not having it in 48 hours. 48 hours. Ours is being aggravated by Lago Dam. Lago Dam, you know Lago Dam now? It's 308 meters long, 40 meters high, then 9 meters thick. The surface area is 586 square meters. And it's supposed to irrigate 15,000 hectares of crops. That's it. So if you have water coming down from 40 meters, you know what 40 meters is? Where water is resting, it has potential energy. By the time it is coming, it has kinetic energy. And that's very, it's just like you pouring water from a bottle mouth to anything. You cannot collect that same water with a bottle mouth. Yes, the Dancing Dam that was created to collect the water was probably in 1982. Then climate change have not become very devastating. It was 2.5 the size of Lago Dam. Now we have a problem. What are you going to do? Lago Dam is basically entering into the River Benue. So you have to, it is not that this flooding is not, you can't solve it, but it's going to come at a very huge cost in infrastructure.
So whilst it is true that, that is going to, we're going to see, we're going to have to spend quite a huge amount of resources to be able to solve the flooding.
Yes.
Have you seen any, given all of the warnings that we have had and given the adverse impact that it is going to have on our economy and livelihoods, maybe I should put it the other way, lives, because right now we understand about 600 people have lost their lives as a result of the floods. It's going to have a resultant effect on livelihoods. It's going to have impact on how, people are currently living, people who are internally displaced are not finding it funny as we speak. And then generally, the aftershocks felt in other neighboring states which might not even be affected by the flood. For instance, here in Abuja, where we're seeing a scarcity of petroleum products as a result of a breakage in supply chains. I'm wondering whether you've seen a sense of emergency, a sense of urgency on our part, knowing that this is what has been projected, this is what we are expecting. We should be seeing a Marshall Plan of some sort, by those who are concerned to see how we can mitigate this. We're not seeing any of that. Do we have an explanation for that?
Yes, well, you see, whatever you are doing now is not going to be a measure to the catastrophe. It's no more a disaster, it's a catastrophe now. We are worried about the flood. No, we should be worried about the flood stage now. What is flood stage? That is the number of time, the number of days that the flood is going to stay after the flooding. Now, the highest had been 156 days. That was in Mississippi. To solve a problem, you must go back to history. When you're going back to history, you go back to Mississippi. When it was flooded in 1927, what did they do? They went back to the drawing board. They went back to the drawing board massive investment, elevated structures. What are you talking? Your bridge should be elevated now in those areas that are very, very consigned. Do you understand? But with the establishment of the Climate Commission, that's a positive step in the right direction. This one has overwhelmed the subnational and national level. So it's a very huge problem.
So where do we turn to if the national level is overwhelmed?
No, well, the national level is coming in now, providing a whole lot of, but subnational level cannot do anything. They need the national level now to come in, which they already do. You can see material being distributed and everything and all. That is it. But the national level now is taking charge of the flood stage.
Okay.
Yes, that's
what but Dr. K, do you think we have a sense? All this data, yes, they're all there. But do you think we actually understand the gravity of what we're dealing with here?
I think we do, even if not anything, the casualty figures will tell us that that's a serious matter. I want to contextualize it, taking off from where Commodore began, the matter of water level.
Yeah.
The projected amount, the biggest ice sheet, I think, in the North Pole, in the Arctic region, Lassen B, was projected to melt in 20 years. It melted in 3 years, the bulk of it, between 1990 and 1993. Now, the overall global environment, global warming is increasing water volume, that is one. Here, what is the root of our own crisis? When you create a dam, you reduce the amount of water going downstream. And we've been creating dams. That means that what used to be part of the riverbed and floodplains, over the years, were mistaken for dry land. And so people began to build more and more into the riverbed. Where you have towns, if I use the expression as in the Delta and Onitsha, between the River Niger, those were where the River Niger used to be. But you now have sand in the middle of the River Niger. If you're traveling south, most of the rivers have water in the middle. These are rivers that used to fill up. If you look at the condition of Lokoja in this last flood, the last one was 2012.
Yeah.
Now, all those buildings, their roofs were underwater. That would tell you that had there been the normal volume of water on that channel was coming, there will be no houses there. And the bulk of Lokoja is not soil in that axis area. It's silt and alluvial deposit. No, not alluvial deposit, silt and pith. What more than all of that accumulates over time. So what am I talking about? We have many cities that are living below the supposed water level because for a long time they mistook for dry land what is not dry land. And consistently, each time there's the expectation of a flood, NIMET warns. The question now is, did NIMET warn Nigerians? Yes. Did NIMET warn state governments? Yes. Repeatedly? Yes. Did many of the governments talk to the people to move? Yes. If you recall, when Babangida Ali was governor of Niger State, he even built an alternative, let me use the word town or village. The people refused to relocate. At a point, the mayor moved, and then some of them began to move. So let's disaggregate the issues. There's a matter of an environment that, has challenges of governance intelligence over several decades. We like farming, isn't it? We should have more food. So when you create dams, what do? You reduce the water. You destroy local economies downstream. Now, what's the effect of destroying local economies? People who fish, who do crab farming, will have no means of livelihood. Crime goes up. Then you've reduced the amount of water. Water transportation disappears. With that, siltation increases. Now, this goes on, and people there begin to think that this is a normal environment. Lo and behold, a percentage of the actual amount of water returns, and they discover they've been living in the riverbed. Why would water cover somebody's roof? If you have, or intelligent urban planning that works with the gradient of the environment, and then looks at this whole floodplain thing. There's a channel that comes all the way from Tanzania that passes through part of West Africa. So the absence of a global view of the environment in terms of the geology of it, the geography of it, the physical and human geography, which are two different things, that's what we are suffering now. If you're going to Lokoja, just 30 more seconds. Before you get to, after the 2012 flooding, some parts were elevated. Just before you enter, anybody looking will know that thing ought to have been elevated for about 11 meters. They did about 2 or 3 meters. Everybody was happy. How could you do that? So, and before you get to that point where you enter Lokoja, that long road that's full of trees, that road was constructed, material was brought to make it, because whenever there's flooding, you have practically rivers on which you can fish on both sides. A return to the appropriate measures that will raise, which will be monumental, like he said. How are you going to raise that part of Lokoja higher? You know why it's critical? There's going to be more of this, more frequently going forward.
Wow. Yeah.
It is very disturbing to think about. I mean, because we're still trying to wrap our heads around this, and for a number of people, they think that, you know, I mean, I'm sure that you have been saying what's been happening. The explanation has been going on social media. Air Commodore spoke about a dam which was conceived. That dam, we never built it, did we?
No, there's extensive work going on there. You see, let me say here, the national government is doing a lot. All over the world, you've seen that when the climate change has challenged the reserve, the pulse of so many nations, so many sovereignties. Go to Pakistan. The other day, I listened to the Secretary General of the UN appealing to the international community, including private sector, to come to the aid of Pakistan. The same thing with South Africa.
We saw what happened in Pakistan. It was a terrible disaster. I mean, the monsoon rains there, you know, really outdid themselves this year. It was really heart-wrenching to watch. But, you know, right here in Nigeria, I'm talking about the dam. You two also spoke about, did we build the dam? Or we just started work and never finished it?
No, the dam is there. Well, maybe they will try and complete it now.
Okay, so it's not completed. Because for a number of people, they say that that was part of the agreement with Cameroon when Cameroon was building the Lagdo Dam, that we also were supposed to be doing a part of our, doing something on our own side to stop, you know, to try and mitigate whatever was going to be coming from Cameroon, because it was already thought at that time that Cameroon from time to time will have to release water from the dam if, you know, whenever the situation arises. There are also questions as to, these are things that we knew. I mean, we usually know that, you know, on both sides of a river, around the riverbed, we should give, you know, a certain number of meters from building. Have state governments been able to enforce this effectively? And then dredging of our rivers. These are big questions that have been asked. I mean, we need constantly sand for development. And some people say, oh, they constantly give out these contracts. But, you know, we don't know if it is implemented.
No, in respect of the state governments. You see, when you have the riverbed dry for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, the concept of floodplain disappears. Because what you call a floodplain is where when the river fills out too much, the excess water goes, eventually it returns. Now, progressively, we've been mistaken floodplains for dry land. From that, we've been mistaken part of the river for dry land. And so you find that urban planning has not been sensitive with the aquageology of the places where work is going on. And so when you state governments, they're developing new areas, without even sometimes understanding, doing enough soil tests to know the kind of buildings that should be there. So that's part of the problem. In fact, just to extend this and return to this, Lagos there are 11 recorded, officially designated sinking cities in the world that no matter what happens, they will go under. Lagos is on the list.
Oh, dear.
No, it's on the list. It's been there. Victoria Island is not supposed to have high-rise buildings. We are celebrating Eko Atlantic City. For how long will it be there? Yes, they went all the way to Bedrock. Then the new flyover between that goes on to Iko, coming from out of here, in all of that, you're also reducing the water space, isn't it? Now, coming around to the critical question of state governments, what are they doing? You must ask yourself the repertoire of knowledge available to state governments and town planners with which they plan the states. They think of estates and of revenues and of new areas and of GRAs and waterfront settlements. Do they know enough about the geology of the environment? The physical geography that should tell them that this should be done or not be done. So whereas one must acknowledge that, and it's not this, anybody who tries to blame the current government for this has no sense of history. Is a violation and disregard that has gone on for a long time. This dam in the dam in Zamfara, for instance, it was planned, constructed how many decades ago, but the envisaged impact was underestimated. So it cleaned out more villages than was projected. Were those people compensated?
So does that then mean that we have to have a national approach to this? Perhaps, probably, because I think yesterday the governor of Anambra was saying, well, they have to have a conversation with the federal government to see how they can approach this. Because if different states don't pull together concerning that town planning strategy you speak about, we will face the same thing, because you've said this will happen again.
No, you will. But you see, when they will call the federal government and hold a meeting on emergency. You know, you have cancer and there's pain also. So you hold an emergency meeting to provide Panadol. The pain, you will feel it less. What they're dealing with now is a crisis arising from an incident of flooding. That is different from a comprehensive approach to, look at River Niger. We still have Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority, NIWA. Are there waterways? Before, people traveled on the Benue by boat.
Yeah.
Now, so all of that out of the way.
But we know that there's also been controversy. I mean, in terms of water, also calling to mind right now the controversial water bill in the National Assembly, and then also the, will I say, the row we see between states who have water bodies, significant, water bodies in them, and, with the federal government. Which you talk about over who has right of the waterways. There is an ongoing battle. It's not been highlighted, but I wonder if this has any effect whatsoever on how we've also been able to manage situations like this.
To some extent, but going on the, you mentioned dredging. I think Oko also mentioned that is in the papers today. You see, when you dredge, you get a bigger hole, not more water. This is a tangential matter. That's why I'm waiting to see how there will be a port in Onitsha. The inland port and all of that. But on the substantive matter you've raised...
You get a bigger hole that can hold more water.
Where will you get it? You buy pure water? Do you get it? Less water is coming. 68% of the water coming down isn't coming down anymore.
But look at all the water that has come down now.
Precisely. During a season.
Yeah.
If you dredge, that water will just run to the ocean in a week or two. You can't have a port. So going back, if you want to take contract for supply of pure water, I will tell them to go.
But Commodore,
so you don't think that dredging would have solved this?
No. Look, dredging, if the rivers were dredged, the waters would have moved more freely. That's correct. But you see, dredging does not constitute a permanent solution. In that the ecology of the place and the ecosystem must also be considered. The more you remember, in a normal aquatic environment like where you have a river, the floodplains, that's where crabs live. If you know, that's where you have crab. Fishing takes place. As you dig more and more, that part of the ecology disappears. Fishermen lose their jobs. What do you call it? Local urban migration begins. So you see that the whole thing is tied together. Now, where governments are able to maintain that comprehensive perspective when dealing with problems, when building a dam, when constructing a road, there are many things that could be avoided. But most fundamentally, in all the, what do you call it, flooded areas now, what you find is that there has been, over time, the mistaken impression that what is land is actually land.
Well, Commodore, what should we be doing now? I mean, I know there's still different people who have different perspectives about climate change. So what should our approach be, given what we're facing now?
Yes, well, our approach, what we should be engaged in now, you're going to have immediate, you're going to have medium, you're going to have long term. The immediate now is the flood stage. We need to deal with that, because when you have a flood stage that lasts for a very long time, what are you doing? You are indexing diseases, cholera, dysentery, and all. That is we are going to manage that one. Thank God the federal government is responding to that significantly, waiting for that to happen. Then again, you are going to have hunger. Now, it is strong enough. The hunger is strong enough for the African Development Bank to earmark $1.5 billion. It is also strong enough for IFAD, International Fund for Agricultural Development, to be advising Nigeria to start dry season agriculture early enough. Those are interventions by the national government. It is also strong enough for the Islamic Bank, IFAD, and African Development Bank to put in $4.5 billion US to shore up agriculture, because what we're going to do now, that is the immediate food security. Don't forget, when you have flooding, you are going to have economic security, you're going to have water security, you're going to have health security. At the end of the day, national security, which will be imparted on migration, displacement. So then in the medium term, we're going to have nature-based solution, adaptation, mitigation, and all. Don't forget that the whole of all these things is subsumed into climate change, which the federal government has set up the Climate Change Commission to take effect. But the sad thing is that we only contribute less than 1% of carbon emission, which is not equal to the devastation that we are having. But compounding all these things, that we have 325 dams in Nigeria. Dams are like vehicles. When you buy them, you have to service them. You have to deseed them. You have to make sure that they are in the state to do what you have established it to do. It's very, very important. That's the medium term. The long term is infrastructure. Like the Mississippi did. See, every solution you are taking now must have the framework in its front: climate change. Climate change. Now, like the national government have done a lot. They've increased the national determined contribution for carbon from 45% to 47%. That is why going to this year's COP, what is the message that everybody is going to take? It's a global message. Starting from 1972, 1979, the Kyoto Protocol, including the Paris Agreement, they all tend to say, look, the international community, you are doing a lot of the pollution. So you also come clean in assisting the emerging economy. So the whole world is going to be going there now with the same cry that has forced IMF to downgrade the growth for the year. So it's a national thing. The long term is that we have to invest in infrastructure. Elevation of bridges, elevation of outright relocation. You know, after the Mississippi, that substantially gave rise to Texas. And again, to technology, data. After Mississippi flooded, they went back. You know, in Texas now, there are technologies to examine the laying of the sand at the river bed. What does that tell you? It tells you the speed. So by the time you relate to that, you are able to know, okay, this flood that is coming now, this was how it came 2 years ago. What was the preparation? You prepared it. In 2017, you remember, Nigeria was classified at the countries among the 10 most vulnerable to climate change in the world. In 2021, that was, we went to 56 through the action of the national government. But it still remains that we still remain the sixth country with a gap in preparation to prepare for. So we have to put all these things together in the long term. Because one, you have the third largest mangrove in the world. Of the, you have about 3 trillion trees in the world, and most of all this is tree planting. We have to engage in massive tree planting. So those are the three stages that we have to go.
Quite a number of issues, but given, I know you mentioned outright relocation, given how people are attached to land, I wonder how they should deal with that. But we'll talk about some of those issues and more when we return in just a moment. Stay with us. Commodore, let me ask you, given how we are attached to land here, one wonders, how are people supposed to deal with this? Because yes, you've reeled out a lot of information that ordinarily we should have at the back of our minds, and deciding everything we do when it's got to do with building or your habitat, wherever. But that's going to be a challenge if you tell people, move away from here because this area may not be in existence in 5, 10, 15 years. How should we be approaching this?
Yes. It is only, there's an Igbo adage that says that it is only a tree that you will tell that I'm going to cut you, and will still remain there. You go and cut it. So we're dealing with an existential threat now. The national government have gone through NIMET. The moment we see those NIMET interactions,
yes,
it's supposed to be a trigger that, look, something ominous is coming, is going to happen. You understand? But then, River Life Lane and all should start evacuating them.
Yeah. You know, I was listening to the governor of Anambra yesterday when we had on Sunrise Daily, and he used the exact same word, which he just used, existential. He says that Anambra as a state is facing an existential threat. 1/3 of the state, as we speak, is currently submerged in water. Before now, Anambra was also known as the capital of the Roshan, you know, in Nigeria. And these are serious environmental, this is not to even add all the other issues that, you know, any state government has had to contend with or will have to contend with. I'm looking at how it is, I mean, that you begin to tell one residents based on 1/3 of a state to relocate. To relocate where?
He's graduated now. It does not affect every part the same way. You understand? You see, vulnerable, less vulnerable, more vulnerable. You cannot relocate 1/3 of the country. That's why you need a subsisting solution. This subsisting solution, you see, you have dam, you have levees, you have dikes. They don't perform the same function. When you, like he said, when you get a dam, you put it at the upstream. It takes the water. Now, from Lago Dam, with the amount, 586 square meters area. So what the dam you are going to have is going to be 3 times that size. Precisely. Because the way the water is coming, you have to take it like that. Because their own is 9 meters thick, 40 meters high. Imagine water coming from there.
The kinetic energy and impact.
The kinetic energy and the impact is huge. Okay. So you have to graduate it from dam. You move to levees. What does levees do? Whatever escape from the dam is an embankment. It's cut off. And above, you also have to create spillover point into an unvirgin land. You understand? But with an eye on next year's own, it's already coming now. The cold have started in the northern hemisphere. What is that going to give you? Snow.
All right. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Gentlemen, you both seem to be speaking about something that we have not done, things that we have not done over the years that we should have done. The first National Development Plan, for instance, was in 1962. The second one was in 1970. And I'm wondering how this could have affected anything. Dr. Okechukwu, this one is for you. We have had plans over the years that we have not sustained. You know, the development plans that we seem not to have sustained. Do you think there is anything we could have done to forestall this from happening as, you know, as it currently exists? Partnership with the states, between states and federal government, has been not too strong over the years. Is there any way this kind of catastrophe we have on our hands could have been avoided?
To a large extent, yes. You spoke of national development plans. Now, national development plans are usually holistic. In other words, you're planning to, whether it's road construction, you must link it with economic roads and other aspects of the life of the people, and you graduate it over time. Say, 5-year national development plan, and the next 5 years we will have done this and that, then 5 years after we'll do another one. Now, what has happened over the decades is that progressively, especially as we began to have sustained military leadership, national development plans began to drop or be replaced by regime plans. Look at our 20 years of democracy. You had this needs document, fantastic developmental document under Obasanjo. We didn't need, all it needed was continuous implementation by the same party. Yar'Adua came with 7-point agenda. I don't know if you remember any one of the 7. Jonathan, still the same government, came with transformation agenda. Now, you must have national development plans, not regime what you like, lingos. Now, going back to the substantive question you raised, imagine that just taking the area of transportation, you're talking about comprehensive national transportation master plan. Rails are working, the waterways are working, the roads are good, all of them integrated. So, and you cannot do all of that without at the same time doing progressive evaluation of the physical geography of the country, the right kind of infrastructure, etc. Take an example, you want to go and give them maybe light in Bayelsa State, and all your life you've never known anything about underground cables. You'll be thinking of electric poles, and you will give them electricity with vulnerable infrastructure, because if any of those poles is brought down, there will be substantial cases of electrocution. Now, what am I saying? A national development plan rests on 3 major pillars, among others. Comprehensive understanding of the physical and human geography of the place, and then policies that address them holistically without one damaging the other when implemented. My take, I may be mistaken, is that had it been we had consistently followed national development plans, we are not likely to be where we are today. If you recall, under Babangida, in fact, he changed it to rolling plans, which means that if you have a national development plan and it's working, it's going on, and there are other things coming up, whether force majeure or issues in technology and development, you integrate and it becomes a rolling plan, still going forward with the same objective of integrating new policies and new processes. Yes, I believe that we wouldn't be where we are today if a culture of organized leadership, rather than episodic encounters, rather than digging boreholes to get an applause, would have made a difference if we've kept to that original kind of approach to comprehensive societal development.
Okay. Well, Commodore, this one is for you. You spoke earlier about, food insecurity and health, insecurity if we do not do the needful. As you have mentioned about Mississippi, these floods will abate. What then would happen to that environment, those communities all over the country that are currently flooded? What would you propose that we begin to do now, especially where you also mentioned that there's another flood coming, whether we like it or not? So when the floods eventually recede, what happens to those communities? What needs to be done if they are going to be habitable again?
Yes, the flooding is not bad in its entirety. It brings alluvial soil. The Almighty God has a way of compensating for disaster. You're going to have a buster agriculture, but before then, you have had rice farms being washed away. You have had yam, particularly, yam does not like water, it's being washed away. Now, before, you see the UNFCCC is promoting, what do you call it, smart agriculture. Smart agriculture now enables you to do a whole lot of things. It has been welcomed here, it has been received here and all. So we really need to go into it, get the people. As the flood stage, we don't even know how long it's going to last here now. But what do? We have to get this smart agriculture developed substantially. That is, this one has given us a lesson. When you have a problem, what is very important is the lesson that you are taking out from it. That is why you were talking about plan. Plan is what it is, plan. It's an vision, projection, and progression. What it is, but you are not fixing it. You are not going to know the vagaries and everything that is going to happen along the way. So for the agriculture now, we have to embrace smart agriculture now. Going forward, that is what we have to. Now we have to also take advantage of the alluvial soil that is going to be brought to our own environment.
Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but listening to you, it would seem as if there is no consensus on structural solutions to this disaster of monumental proportion. For instance, Dr. Okechukwu asked a very critical question: how do we raise, the areas affected in Kogi State? How do we raise that level? For you, Mr. Air Commodore, rather, you talked about building bridges. But are we going to move 1/3 of, a population in a state to live on bridges? So what is the structural solution, if there is, or perhaps if I missed it, to this type of disaster, particularly because you have said something instructive, that there's going to be another flooding?
Yes, yes, like when we're talking of elevated infrastructure, you see the case of Lokoja, there was an economic constraint. There was no movement of anything, and that impacts the economy significantly. So like you said, like I told you, if you want to solve a problem, you have to go back to history. Like I said, in Mississippi, what did they do? Like that bridge, we know that every year, the water is going to cover it. We should be thinking of an infrastructure now that will make movement. Economy is movement. Money is movement. And everything about it is movement. Then what Dr. Ekejigu said is that the area that can be elevated has to be elevated. It is not a problem that is bedeviling Nigeria alone. No. Essentially, we have to have a policy that confesses most of all this our experience. It's no more a silos policy. It's a policy that interacts with Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, all World Meteorological Agency and all. To put everything, it's going to be about projection so that we know what to do. Like I said, investing in infrastructure is still the way to go. Solving this problem is not impossible, but it's going to come at a very huge cost. We already have, we're not starting from ground zero, like I told you. We already have 325 dams in Nigeria, in the pseudo-Sahel. We can go to that for now, while we think of the Dasin Dam and everything. We can go to that, deseat it, service it and everything, and makes it a work on the Benue axis. Yes.
For instance, if the dam Malkwe talked about earlier that was supposed to be built to check the flooding, the release of water from the Cameroonian dam, if it had been built, would it mitigate, this disaster to a reasonable level? That's on the one hand. On the second hand, the release of the dam, according to reports, usually affects states like Kogi and a number of others that I can't immediately recall. But we find that the release of water from that dam has affected as much as 10 states in Nigeria. Is there any, engineering answer, to this question? Why has it affected more states than expected?
The release of water from the dam only aggravated the issue. Mm-hmm. There was already a rain that was supposed to fall in 2 years, falling 48 hours before the dam came. The states you are talking about, they are all on the River Benue axis. So most of them, see, the dam is not a magic. It also has its working principle. When it's getting full, you have to release it. All and one, you are going to have dam breach. Mm-hmm. And when you have that you cannot even manage that. What you are seeing now will be a child's play when you have a dam breach. So like you earlier said, if we have constructed that, would they have solved it? No, there was no climate change of this significant interest. Well, maybe will it have been a meager value? That is debatable. But now we need to invest in dams. We need to clean up the 325 dams in the pseudo-Sahel, and we need to add more, because if you are releasing the water, the Lago Dam is up 40 meters, and we are down. And everything at the end of the day is going to congregate in Lokoja. Lokoja is the bed that is there. What are you going to do there? That is the biggest problem. Lokoja and Anambra.
Wow.
It's very critical.
Suddenly, yes. Yeah, you're going to say something.
Yeah. Lokoja is a confluence town. Several rivers coming together. Then the matter of settlement, the topography indicates that even for the critical economic value of Lokoja between the north and south, nobody needs to tell us now that we need a major bridge, because to relocate the town is not possible. That's the truth. Oh. We need a major bridge, at the very least, 25 meters above the existing level, that can carry traffic coming from that main channel from Abuja, possibly over Lokoja if that must happen.
All right, because at the moment, cotton coffee is a challenge. It's affecting fuel supply in different parts of the country, and that's why it won't be out of place for the NNPC, for instance, to speak up on that particular matter. And then, gentlemen have also read out some action points. So the Ministries of Environment, Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, NEMA, they all need to give hope to those who are affected right now because they need urgent action. And pending, probably, the states have said that they will have that conversation with the federal government. We're hoping, we expect, not just hope, we expect that some of these action points will be executed because it's not just today. As you've heard, there will be another tomorrow. We need to prepare for that. Well, gentlemen, we have to immensely thank both of you for coming on. Commodore Kenneth Iyamu is a climate change researcher. He's a member of Global Air Force Climate Change Collaboration Group. I wonder how the Air Force and the security agencies are also approaching this matter. Well, then Dr.
We're doing a lot.
Doing a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Please keep it up. Dr. Okeke, Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're turning our attention now to politics in Imo State. We've got two gentlemen joining us here as well. Zare Ema, he's Secretary, PDP, Imo State, as well as Chris Lance Osondonyemachar, who is a founding member of the APC in Imo State. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Now, although the chairman of INEC has said that there is no going back on BVAS and they will continue with their plans and action, but there's this several statements, comments published. For instance, there's one from a group, they call themselves the Arewa Consultative Youth Movement. There are several others. They did ask the president to call or investigate or set up a team to investigate the governor of Imo State concerning allegations of him being behind the plot to remove the chairman of INEC and frustrate the use of BVAS. Today's daily, some of them did publish Haneze calling, asking the governor of Imo State to come clean on his position on BVAS, whether or not those allegations leveled against him are true. So, and several other matters happening in the States. So say Imo's been in the news for not exactly the right reason. So let me start from you, being a member of the APC, concerning the state government, what is being alleged against the governor. Should he be speaking directly and putting all of these rumors to bed?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Sincerely speaking, there is no truth in the accusation or allegation that the governor of Imo State is trying to put a stop to the BVAS or try to instigate the removal of the INEC chairman.
How can you say that for sure?
Very sure, because he has no capacity to remove the INEC chairman. And he also does not have any capacity to call or to even instigate the INEC or the federal government to jettison the BVAS. So, these are orchestration of the PDP, starting from Imo State.
Of the PDP?
Yes. And I will tell you that this young man who is running for, I think he is one of their candidates in either North and South. It was him who fired the first shot over the issue of BVAS removal of INEC chairman. And to be very candid with you, the young man has a history. He has a pertinent history for lies and putting up fictitious information in the public.
I think we should just stay on the issues and not
no,
I'm
I'm telling you where it all started.
Yeah, but focus on the issues
because he said he was speaking for cops.
Well, he's
but
not here.
We know. He said he's speaking for the cops, but we know who are his paymasters. We know whose ears he's got. So that's why I had to, go a little, drift a little back.
But not on his character, but the issues, of course, we'll talk about the issues.
Well, it is consistent in his character to go that way. That is why I have to bring it to, to let Nigerians know. How could a young man wake up and claim that a sitting governor? Let me tell you, the issue of beavers, who brought about the issue of beavers? Who signed it into law? Was it the PDP? Was it the cops? It was all APC. So how could APC bring, reform our electoral process?
APC brought beavers.
Under APC government, if the parliament.
So INEC is not independent then?
They are independent, but when they brought the... No, hold on. They are independent. However, who is controlling the National Assembly?
Is APC controlling INEC?
No, but the National Assembly had to give the approval. They signed it, they passed it, and the president signed it into law. So if the APC does not want it, they would have killed it right at the National Assembly. That's what I'm saying.
Since you accuse the PDP, Honorable Ray, is that the case?
The problem we have in Nigeria is that there's no distinction between patriotism and self-interest. Because if my brother here is talking about APC bringing into law and all that, the issues are clear. Did anybody go to court in Imo State to ask that beavers be jettisoned? Did anybody go that? If that answer is yes, and it is yes, and it was sponsored by the government of APC in Imo State, and INEC beavers being jettisoned means a truncation of the Electoral Act and a complete overhaul of the electoral process that is supposed to usher good governance in Nigeria. So is there anything like that happening? If the answer is yes, why can't we face the fact and say it the way it is? Secondly, he's talking about Igochinyan. Is it not a fact that INEC data is being compromised, where a local government that has been bedeviled by insecurity, where almost everybody, every community is deserted, where the local government that registered less than 12,000 in 2019 is now claiming to have registered 86,000.
Which local government is this?
Omuma local government, Oru is local government. Particularly the ward of the governor of the state registered 46,000. That had only 3 years ago, 6,000 registered voters. Is it on INEC website? As a fact, if it is, what has gone wrong? And I want my brother, as two patriots, let us face the issues, let us stop politicking, because our children are going to be victims of all this rigmarole and lies and deceit.
You're saying that those figures, the registration figures, were inflated, and that's not the case.
I am saying that in 2019, I've been the secretary of PDP in Imo State for 6 years. In 2019, we discovered that there were fake registration units in the same ward of Moma in Imo State. And we alerted INEC. So what he's saying, Ugochijere is saying, is not new. We did it in 2019. Alerted INEC. INEC was, and I give credit to them, came in and corrected the anomalies. And PDP won in that local government in 2019. Today, they have gone back to the same system. And the challenge we have here today is that everybody knows if we get it right with beavers, if we support INEC to do credible election, it doesn't matter which party wins. It means that we have started a pedestal of getting leadership by those who earn and who should be there, and not by any fraudulent means.
Okay, let me just quickly confirm, though, because, I mean, even though what you're saying is that we should stick with the fact whether or not, indeed, somebody has gone to court to try and stop the use of beavers. But the allegation is that Governor Hope Uzodinma is behind that person. Maybe by extension, the APC in Imo State is the one trying to stop the use of beavers. The name of the person who has gone, I'm unsure if it's a man or a woman. The name we have is Nwankwerre Moral Chinwe. I don't know whether you know this person and whether or not the person has any affiliation whatsoever with Governor Hope Uzodinma or the APC at that.
The point is this. According to Wole Soyinka, the owl cried in the night and the child died in the morning. Who does not know who killed the child? This is happening in the community, the immediate vicinity of the state governor. And I've told you that this is not new to us. But Nigerians are probably, because of the effort of the CUPP and all that, hearing it at a larger scale. It is not new. And it's not only in Omuma, for the records. It's happening in Hituboma. In every local government, let me tell you the truth. You can't tell me that Pang Shanghu is a citizen of Imo State. You can't, in every community where you have an APC kingpin, this fraud is there. And let us also go back to, and I speak with facts. INEC is the regulatory body. They haven't disowned the claim by Ogochinya. In fact, the INEC has come out to say that yes, they acknowledge, but they are cleaning up fictitious registration. These are facts. And what we are facing is, instead of finding out,
did they acknowledge or that they will look into any allegation?
Well, if somebody says that there are fictitious names uploading of strange names to the INEC, and INEC says we are cleaning up, in fact, we have cleaned out 3,000 in that particular local government. By extension, INEC has accepted
even
that
millions, even recently, several millions were delisted from the register that were not right. So there's a regular procedure for the commission.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that the issue is there an infraction? If there is, for the credibility of INEC and for the 2023 elections, we should encourage INEC. But what we hear are people going to court asking that the INEC chairman be removed, beavers should be stopped. Who is afraid of beavers?
Is the court person associated with the governor?
The truth about it is that we don't even know who the woman is.
You know it's a woman.
I think you mentioned Maureen also.
Moral Chinwe.
Chinwe. Well, mostly Chinwe is must be a lady.
It can be the name also unisex.
It can also be unisex. Anyway, well, let me say something. To be very candid with you, if there is any party in Imo State that should be happy with beavers, right now it should be APC. In 2019, if we had beavers, Right Honorable Ihedoya would never ever have been declared governor, because in his local government, he posted over 60,000 votes to himself.
He posted it to himself?
Yes.
Did he conduct the elections?
I'm coming. Accredited number of voters in his local government were less than 20. According to INEC.
Less than 21.
20,000, sorry. According to INEC. But this same man got over 60,000 votes in his local government in Abombise.
You don't have the facts.
Now I'm coming.
Which facts? You don't have the records.
Who says so? The records are there.
Which 60,000?
Excuse me.
You don't have the records.
I allowed you, just allow me to learn.
Please don't.
But do you have the records?
The record. There is a public domain.
Can we upload our NEC website now and tell you that there was no local government in Imo State except in either or not?
Excuse
that we
me.
had.
No.
Have 70,000.
No.
What are you talking about? You don't have
How
the
many?
records.
I said, if there is one party in Imo State today that should be happy with beavers, I think it should be APC. So, because going into the next election with beavers, we're not going to have all those figures coming from Abombise, Ahiazumbise, we're going to see the real voters. So,
so you're saying that if we had the vote, if the beavers was used for that election, Hope Uzodinma would have won the election?
Yes, if the entire polling units results were counted at the first ballot. So let me conclude. Excuse me.
Before he responds.
He says something. You understand? He is talking about what's happening at Umuma and what's happening.
And what happened in 2019?
And the issue of beavers. They are mutually exclusive. you're talking about beavers. Somebody going to court to stop the beavers. And you're also talking about the registration at Omuma. INEC is automated. And I'm very happy with what they're doing. Any fictitious name, any name well, I mean, as he's saying that there are, you mentioned a Japanese or Chinese name, all those names, wherever they are found, including the ones that have been uploaded in Abombise, they'll all be deleted. So anybody coming to cry wolf, wolf, wolf because an election is around the corner, just to paint a particular party and a particular government in a negative way. I mean, Zemanga should come out to tell the people the truth. He knows that his party is a party that has the propensity to rig, propensity to write results where accredited number of voters are less and the number of voters that they post are 3 times the number. So he should tell the people the truth. Even people are watching him.
Well, it's unfortunate, my brother. If you go to Imo State today and you say Remanga, everybody knows. I've been a participant in the electoral processes. I've been a House of Assemblyman. I've been a councillor. I'm a community leader. And I have not come across you anywhere in the whole terrain of political in Imo State. And that's why you are not even averse with the facts and records. For the records, the highest votes that came from a local government in 2019 was Idato South, Rochas local government, and it was rejected by INEC. The highest vote that came from Owerri zone was in Ezini Hitembise. It was 43,000. And Abombise, where Hedia comes, was 23,000. So, I would like us to have this kind of conversation with people who are conversant with what is happening in Imo State. And I'm telling you, as a true patriot, as somebody who has refused to jump ship, join governments. I have been on this station several times. And I'm clear that we have to bequeath a future for our younger generation. All these lies I'm putting Imo State that used to be one of the safest states in Nigeria, all these stories, whenever we come on the national media, we're discussing negatives about Imo State because we want to help our pockets. It does not help. The truth of the matter is, and I want to face facts, what has happened in INEC register in Omuma. What is INEC doing about it and how we are going to stop it? Who has gone to court and mobilizing to stop from INEC from conducting the general election, including removal of... suddenly, Imo State has become the capital of doing the wrong things for the retrogression of Nigeria under the leadership of APC in Imo State. And you are saying that if Beavers was used in 2019, you would have won. You couldn't even win your local government, Edo East. And you came a distant fourth. And like Justice Jesse said, and that is the challenge we have in Imo State. Let me tell you, let's make this opportunity to honestly tell us and the Nigerians. The problem we have in Imo State are at 3 levels. One is the insecurity level. Secondly, lack of good governance. And thirdly, this coming 2023 election. But like Justice Jesse said, unless the injured, and you are the one who mentioned Emeka Iheda, because I'm not here to talk about Emeka Iheda. I'm here to talk about the party in Imo State. Unless the injustice that was meted to the voters in Imo State is corrected, unless that is put to bed and somebody apologizes for it, we will continue to have Imo State on the negatives. Today, Imo State records the lowest number of registered voters in the southeast. Even people don't want to come out and register.
But can we
Even people don't want to vote because their votes have never counted anymore.
Yeah, but can we gloss over the purported letters written by Mr. Iheda concerning Nnamdi Kanu's release? Because if you say you don't want to talk about it, that letter is also there.
Well, there is a factory in a government house in Imo State headed by Emelomba, the Commissioner for Information, and their duty is to manufacture propaganda, lies, and tales. Let me tell you, we have accepted that we lost at the Supreme Court on 14th January 2020, and we have moved on, rebuilding our party and promising more people a better future. We accept that. But somehow, the people who stole that mandate have not been able to, have not done anything for them to be accepted by Imo people. Let the government concentrate. You don't force love. You don't legislate love.
Don't they love him in the state?
That is the problem in Imo State. The people are yet, 3 years after, to accept the government of APC. And so whatever they do, they have discovered that it is not working. So what do? They put up a propaganda laboratory. Their problem is PDP and Hedjoha. If they are not sponsoring a demonstration against Hedjoha, they are sponsoring a demonstration against Uchonia Agocha. They are sponsoring a demonstration against the state chairman of PDP. They are sponsoring a demonstration against me of no value. They are destroying the campaign headquarters of Uchonia Agocha. And they are calling for the arrest of anybody who speaks out against the government because they know they have not been able, they are still hanging. And the love and goodwill Hedjoha and PDP has garnered in Imo State, they have not been able to break it. All this trouble you see, letter, forged letter, audio message, are all manufactured in a factory headed by the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Memolomba, my friend, to destroy and discredit. In fact, asking, as it is today, that the IPOB and all security challenges in Imo State should be heaped so that we will be killed.
But these are allegations when you say he's the one heading all of those, aren't they? Do you have anything to substantiate the fact that what you say that he's the one heading it?
Melumba. Yeah. Melumba is the head, is the head of the Gestapo.
Chamberlain, well, I'm not the government spokesperson. I'm a member of APC, a founding member of APC. And it's so disheartening listening to Honorable Ray Manga blatantly lie over issues that you can Google, use your phone to Google and get the figures. It's unfortunate that we have an opposition in Imo State that the only time they have, any opportunity they have to speak like this, they bring the state to utmost disrepute. They paint the state black. They have no kind words for the state because they are not in office. It's so unfortunate. He talked about being patriotic. Everything he's been representing here is completely unpatriotic. I'm so sad listening to him, to be very candid with you. He talked about letters. In the last 1 month, Right Honorable Hedjoha has been in the news for the very wrong things. 24th of September, he was in Ghana telling the whole world that if you don't vote Atiku Abubakar in Igbo land, that you're a saboteur.
But he was here and he said that that's not the case. He defined who he was speaking to.
No. You see, he could have also have come again to defend himself that the audio.
So why did you choose not to believe what he said? About the statements credited to him in Ghana?
My name is Chris Lance, also known as Image. If you call me otherwise, why compel me to accept that I'm Chamberlain? He was in Ghana, and he told the whole world that if you do not vote for Atiku Abubakar, you're a saboteur in Igbo land.
No, I'm telling you that we took him up when he was here.
Well,
he clarified.
What clarification? He was only apologizing and begging. Now, he was caught pants down on tape, saying that there will be no peace in Imo State as long as he's not in the government house.
Do you have the tape?
I can forward it to you.
Was it a videotape?
Yes, they call. He made to one man from, I think from Islington.
It was a videotape?
It was a phone conversation that was recorded, that was filmed.
Was it videotape
or
audio tape?
Both. You listen to the audio, it was his voice, it was his phone number, and Honorable Emanga is here denying something that his principal was caught pants down.
Honorable, is that the case?
No, excuse me. Wait. No, Chamberlain, excuse me, please. He was defending an issue that...
He hasn't spoken about this video that you spoke about.
No, he said that Emelumba was manufacturing...
This video you spoke about, has he spoken about it? He hasn't.
But he made reference to it.
What?
He made reference to it.
Not about this particular video.
It must not be this particular video, but he is talking about how a particular person, the Commissioner for Information in Imo State, has
so that's different. So, Honorable, is that correct? Have you seen the video he's talking about now?
It's very clear. Let me tell you again. Let me go back a little. I'm a child of history. Our leader in Imo State, Emmanuel Iwanya, when he celebrated his birthday, that's the beginning of all this crisis you see, or these insinuations and the purported letters and all that, these forgeries. When he celebrated his birthday, the governor of Imo State was the special guest of honor. He was there. Emeka Ihedioha was also there as a nobody. We have accepted. Emeka is not the governor of Imo State. When the governor was called to was mentioned, there were the people, Imo people booed him. When Ihedioha was called, the entire church collapsed in applause and ovation, based on the 7 months he was in government and what he was able to achieve, and the agony and frustration that is going on in Imo State. Since that appearance at the church, where a non-political organization heard, applauded, and praised, as it were, and otherwise booed the governor, we have not had peace. And that's the point I'm making. What we have now, somebody in no position is telling me, somebody in no position is telling me, oh, Ihedioha wrote a letter that IPOB should, Malami, the Minister of Justice, should not release Kanu. And he's one who knows about the letter. He's the one who knows who made the phone call and who made the phone call was made to. And I'm telling you that it is one out of so many things that are happening, and that is a factory manufacturing all these lies. Just a challenge to bring one man and PDP down. And I said, and he's the one who's bringing Emeka on this platform. I would rather discuss PDP.
But gentlemen, you know, listen to both of you and all of this, because there was an unfortunate scenario in Zamfara where one person died because APC and PDP, they had this altercation. And the commission, INEC, and several other people are concerned about elections coming through, states allowing the opposition to have access to venues. Peace pact has been signed by political parties. There needs to be peaceful conduct of elections, even the build-up. With rhetorics like this, one wonders, is that atmosphere going to be conducive for elections?
Let me come in. Already the PDP in Imo State have created an insecure environment for election to hold.
How can they do that?
Yes, I'm coming.
The state is led by the APC government. They're in charge of security.
At the inception of the government of Senator Hope Uzodinma, they ousted deputy governor, made a comment that people did not take, people didn't take him serious until he started snowballing into very serious issues in the state. He said that the state will be ungovernable for Hope Uzodinma. And I can tell you for free.
Is that why he was arrested?
Well, maybe. I can tell you for free. Thereafter, we started having scores of insecurity, killings of security men, reprisal attacks, and they were celebrating it, even on social media. When someone dies, a policeman is killed, a soldier is killed, you see...
Even though we're not exactly sure of that statement, you can't verify whether or not he said what you say he said.
Well, you can verify, or you ask him, did you actually say this? And we can also bring proof to show that he actually said that. Now...
What is the state doing about ensuring that there's peace in that state?
The more the states... security is a collective effort. When you have an opposition party that are seriously... Let me be kind, allegedly to be funding insecurity in the state.
In the governor's own local government?
Yes.
There can't be peace in his own local government?
I'm telling everywhere in Imo State, including in Abombise. He knows. He's an Owerri man. I'm an Owerri man. We are having relative peace in Owerri because of maybe one or two security arrangements within the state's capital. However, as far as Imo State is concerned, they have ensured that we're not going to have a peaceful conduct of election.
Yeah, let me ask you.
Excuse me, Michael. He is saying that Honorable Ihedioha has been accused wrongly. We saw him on video in Ghana.
You saw him?
In Ghana, saying if you do not vote for Atiku Abubakar,
So
and excuse me, and
so what's your challenge with that?
And when you
is he talking about your candidate?
Excuse me, why
are you interested?
No, I'm interested because I'm not going to vote for Atiku Abubakar. I have a better
let me ask you.
Just hold on.
Just a quick one. Even though the letter flying around has been denied by both the state government and the person who was alleged to have written the letter, who also counter-accused the state government of masterminding that letter. I want to ask what your sincere assessment of the release of Nnamdi Kanu will mean for your party in the state and also for the Southeast in general. Let me start with you. Honorable Emana.
Okay, let me honestly.
Yes.
Like I said, I live in Imo. I'm part of the challenges of insecurity. All the normal things that we do in Olomaga do. In Imo State, we not have less than 4 working days, and the capital economy of the state is snowballed very seriously. When Atiku Denwa was governor, there was what we call Masob. They were all over the place. When Hakim was governor, there was also Masob. They were all over the place. They were doing their own thing. And nobody gave them attention. Nobody attacked them. They didn't attack anybody. And we didn't have this kind of massive security challenge. When Hedo Hakim, the IPOB was already in place. They were also. Let me tell you what happens in security in Imo State. Politicians and criminals during elections. Immediately after every election in Imo State since 2000 and 2019, the security challenges will upscale. And the government in power, once they take the creative actions and strategies, within 6 months, it goes down. And I'm saying this as a fact. I'm not a security expert, but you can confirm with security agencies in Imo State. It happened after Atiku was elected. It happened after Hakim was elected. It happened after every other government. The government comes in, owns up the challenge, and within a specific period of time are able to revise the tide. Now in Imo State, when this thing started, the Afro people now came. The governor invited the military to Imo State, and they were using gunboats, shooting from the air in communities in Osun and other neighboring areas. That emboldened. That was when ESN was now formed, and they started hijacking police ammunitions of security agencies.
So do you fear that the release of Nnamdi Kanu could embolden them further,
anything,
or do you think it's going to douse?
If anything, we have severally called on the state government to call for a peace conference. He's talking about the security does not belong to the government alone. I agree with him. But the government does not want to engage on that. Nnamdi Kanu's release is paramount to peace and successful election in the Southeast in 2023.
Do you agree with him? Do you agree with him?
Sure, yes.
So,
personally, I wish the government does not appeal the ruling. Sincerely, I want him to be released, and I want us to have peace in Imo State and the Southeast.
Let's end on a peaceful note, because we've got to go. Gentlemen, we have to thank both of you for coming on. Honorable Ray Emma, Secretary, PDP Imo State, as well as Chris Lance, also on the Machara. He's a founding member of the APC. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on, and we hope that at least a lot will be done, such that there will be a peaceful atmosphere to conduct elections. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Chamberlain, so have a very good day.
We see your messages, Henry Okeke, Ezemonye, Igwe, Ibrahim, Yabuwat, and a number of others. Apologies that we can't take them. Thank you so much for watching this morning. I'm Malkwe Yusuf.
Well, most certainly has been an educating session. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. We'll see you again tomorrow.